Welcome to tutorial 4 on the documentation guidance for the campaign and research It's Time to Talk, Children's Views on Children's Work. And this tutorial is recorded by Claire and by Nicholas. So documentation of the consultation findings in a very kind of systematic and proper way is really key to the success of the Time to Talk campaign and research process. We really need the details documented clearly and well and shared with us in order that we can analyze and use and share children's views and suggestions to influence change. And again, we very much encourage you to support children in taking forward their voices and action initiatives at every level possible near them, in their local level and at higher levels wherever that's feasible. This guidance and on the documentation guidelines includes things you can do before a consultation activity, during a consultation activity, and after a consultation activity. I will pass to Nicholas to explain more about the different guidance for before.
Okay, well, thank you, Claire. Thank you very much, and welcome to everyone. So, well, the first step as part of the documentation is please read carefully the documentation guidance, which is not a very long document, but has really some key step-by-step guidance on how we'll document and ensure that all the activities that have been undertaken and all the children's voices consulted will really be analyzed and taken into account. So now we move on to the next slide. And the first step is to define who is responsible for what, so the key roles and responsibilities. So you will need to identify who or will be the activity organizer. So this includes the logistics, where the consultation will take place, at what moment, how do we invite the children and make sure there is the parents or caregivers' consent, who's going to ensure that there is someone in charge of documentation, transcription, and so on. Another key aspect is to identify who will be the facilitator. So we need at least one facilitator for each group. So this facilitator will have to be identified in advance and be familiar with the tools that are described in the research toolkit. Then we need to identify a group documenter or documenters. If you can have several, it's even better, because for each activity we will need to transcribe the results, as well as someone taking notes, because sometimes the participants, children, will prefer to voice their opinions rather than writing them, or voice their personal views rather than expressing them on a paper or together with the group. So we really need a documenter for each group of girls or boys who are part of the consultations. We'll need a child protection focal point as well, and then translators. Why translators? Because the campaign organizers will analyze the findings if they are in English, French, or Spanish, but who are not in the capacities to do the same for the languages. So we'll ask the organizers, with the support, of course, of the campaign organizer, to translate and transcribe the findings in English or French, of course, or Spanish. Then a very, very important aspect is to identify who will be in charge of returning the consultation results. And at the time of returning the consultation results to us, we'll need, of course, the observation and documentation form that I will describe later, the transcriptions that you will use from transcription tables, the individual questionnaire and consent forms, and then the photos or scanned copies of the draw and write and pictures from the activities. So at the time of inviting the children and when they arrive at the consultation, we need by that time to already have the individual questionnaire and consent form filled in by every child and caregiver from the parts A to C. So the questionnaire has different parts from A to E, but A to C is really the background information and consent from the child and their guardian. So this is really key to be done before a consultation. So on this slide, you see just a print screen of some parts of the questionnaire, but it's a longer document, and we are aware that it can be very long, but this questionnaire will really be used as a key quantitative and qualitative tool to analyze and bring all the data for the analysis for the campaign. So we have set up a very basic and simple individual coding that will really help us track down the children who are involved, because we expect to have at least 2,000 children involved in the consultation. So we really need this basic coding to ensure that no data is lost, and that we can keep track to the questionnaire and consent form and see what kind of opinion is related to which child. So these individual codes will be used to avoid losing data and having, of course, for us a very quick way of organizing the data. So it includes three basic information, which is the gender, the age, and the initials of the child. So we have some examples here. For example, a code of a 12-year-old boy with initials GL or JL, which could be John Lonas. Then we'd have a code, a very simple one, M12JL. And then the same goes on for the other examples. So we just start with the gender, the age, and the initials. So why do we set up these codes, and most importantly, where you will have to use them and locate them? So there will be an observation and documentation form to be filled in for each consultation activity. So we really ask you, as documenters and organizers, to include the individual codes of each child who participates in the consultation in the observation and documentation form. So you will just have to list the 8 or 9 or 10 children who've been there just with their individual code. And when sending back individual contributions, such as drawing right, poems, or story, we really ask you to include the individual code of the child who made the contribution.
So thank you to Nicholas for explaining some of these tips, practical tips for before a consultation. I'm now going to share some checklists to support you in documentation during a consultation. So it's very important, as said earlier, when you're allocating and deciding roles and responsibilities, it's really important to ensure that each group of girls who are part of a consultation and each group of boys have a documenter that is assigned to their group to record findings on, for example, the body map or the mapping of what we can and should not do, and also to take notes during any kind of plenary sessions. And for each consultation, we're requesting the consultation organizers to complete an observation and documentation form that again provides key information about which background of children, which working background, or how many children, or the kind of which activities were used in that particular consultation. We remind you to ensure that all facilitators, documenters, and the protection focal point themselves have signed the code of conduct to ensure kind of more ethical participation. And as kind of highlighted through each of these tutorials, we really encourage you to ensure that each child who is part of the Time to Talk consultations has been interviewed to complete the individual questionnaire and consent form. So as mentioned, we're encouraging that Part A to C is essential that is done prior to the consultation, as it enables consent from the child and their guardian. And Part D, which gets more information about the child's working background and other relevant details, to be collected as soon during or soon after the actual consultation process. And again, throughout this consultation, it's essential that these forms are stored safely and systematically, and where only the consultation organisers and no other have access to, in order to protect the privacy of the child and their family. If children are contributing draw and write poems or stories, this is very much encouraged again during consultations or following consultations. And again, the consent part of the form, part B and C, ensure consent both from the child and from their guardian to be able to share these kind of pictures and any photos of their work. And a particular reminder that some of the activities, they kind of capture children's views in the activity itself. For example, their views on the body map in relation to what they see that they like or dislike, that might be captured on the body. But there are also some activities, such as drama, that there's no written words on that. So it's really crucial that the documenters make a note of the story that children share through their drama, or through the individual pictures that don't have a story, to ask children the meaning of their stories and to make a note of that. And again, to capture the individual code of children where there are individual contributions. So some general tips, again, linking to this note-taking, is that at the very start of consultation, if you have access to name cards, you could encourage each child to have a name card and to make a note of their individual codes. So to protect their identity, they don't necessarily have to put their name, but more like this example here. If it's John Lunas, a boy aged 10, you could just put M10JL. So that also when the documenter is recording what this particular child says, it's easier for them just to make a note, oh, M10JL, this was his view, or in the drama, this is the point he emphasized, for example. If you don't have name cards, you can just also use a kind of masking tape and put the code on it at the start of the consultation. Again, when using Flipchart to record the findings from Timeline, or the findings from the body map, or the flowers of support, or any of the other activities, it's important to remember to label them with the date, the place, the number of children who are involved, and brief details. So, for example, if there was a body map undertaken on the 10th of April 2016, Banu Town, and this involved 8 boys aged 8 to 12 years who were rag pickers, so that when you get all your flip charts together, you can see clearly which flip chart is from which activity. And again, with the documenter, we encourage as much as possible that you record kind of word for word what children say, and wherever possible that you try and include in brackets the individual code of children who make a particular statement. For example, M10JL or F12CM, whatever the code of that child is. But we also recognize that you might sometimes miss something, so don't worry, if you miss minor points because of the speed of discussion, but you could maybe make a note if there are key things missed, so we know where there was missing data. But just, again, organize yourselves, be close to children, and try and record as much detail as you can. And again, with the draw and write, if children make a drawing and they're able to write, we really encourage you to encourage them to record their own meaning of what this drawing is about. But if there's children who draw but don't write, you can ask them to explain to you or to one of the other children what their drawing means, and that you can ensure that meaning is captured from their own perspective. And if you can kind of staple or tape and attach that story to that drawing, and again, remember to include their individual code. That will then enable the transcription and the meaning of these kind of drawings and stories to be shared with us as campaign organisers and as analysts. So, other tips during consultation activity. During some of the activities, children's views may be recorded directly on flip charts as part of the activity. So, for example, in the day in the life of, children will be recording themselves using visuals and any words about their day. In the body map, children's likes and dislikes and experiences regarding their child work or what they do or their responsibilities might be. A lot of that will be directly recorded on the flip chart of the body. So similarly in other activities, a lot's recorded on the flip chart. But we really remind you that during the activities where there's plenary discussion and things aren't necessarily then being recorded on the flip chart, to really make sure as a documenter that you have your notebook ready and you try and capture and record as much as detail as children share during the plenary. And again, if possible, wherever possible, include individual codes regarding what particular children say, or if there's differences in the views of girls and boys, or of children from different working backgrounds. That will be really, really helpful. And again, when recording children's discussions in different groups, ensure the record is labelled with the group, with details of who's in the group, whether it's girls or boys, what age group, whether they're working children and school going also, or whether they're out of school. And again, if it's mixed groups of girls and boys, mention that as well. And similarly, as mentioned earlier, if it's a drama or creative expression, again, make sure that there's a description captured about that, again, what was shown in the drama, as well as children's discussion and feedback on their reactions to seeing the drama or any other comments made in feedback to the children's presentations. And particularly when collecting pictures or photos, we very much encourage you to take photos of each activity as another record. But again, ensure that you have the necessary consent from Part B and C of the consent forms to be able to share those photos and pictures with us. I'll now pass back to Nicholas for looking at after the consultation.
Thank you very much, Claire. So now we have looked at what happens before and during a consultation activity, but it's very key to know what happens after. So the consultation is done, what's next? What's really key as part of the individual questionnaire and consent form is to ensure the child can complete the Part D. The Part D is very important and will provide us a lot of data on the kind of work tasks children are doing, whether they go to school or not, and other very key information, both quantitative and qualitative. So really encourage you to plan sufficient time during the consultation activity, well, at the end, or at another moment, but ideally at the end, to interview each child to complete the Part D and to support him to fill it in, as he can feel more comfortable after the consultation activity to talk about his own personal experiences. We also kindly ask you to add key observations to the observation documentation form. Ensure that all the participants' responses are securely struck to the flip chart, so to make sure they do not fall off and get lost. And then, because then at the time of transcribing the results in the tables, you will be lost. So we actually really encourage you, if you can, and the documenter to transcribe the results right after the activity to make sure no data is lost. Once you have done that, please store the children's responses, data, and consent form very securely for each activity, if possible, in a locked cupboard to ensure privacy is respected and safety as well. So again, I repeat, transcribe the responses soon after the activity, and this will help us increase the accuracy. So we have a series of transcription tables in one document that you will receive to record all the detailed findings from each of the consultation tools that were used. So these tables are very clear and easy to use. So it's basically copying what's on the consultation activity or a flip chart in specific tables. And so you can follow the transcribing guidelines that are in the documentation guidance. Please then return the consultation results to the campaign organizers, and including again the observation documentation form, the transcriptions, the participant information, well, the individual questionnaire and consent forms, and then the photos or scanned copies of Draw and Write from the activities. So again, this is just a print screen example of the Part D of the individual question and consent form. So to remind you to interview each child to complete Part D. So at the time of transcribing the results, going back to there, I remind you that we have identified and developed transcription tables. Again, the observation documentation form needs to be completed when you transcribe and return the results, and they need to include the basic individual codes for each participant. That's very important. So it's very important to transcribe what really appears on the flip charts, post-it or notes, and we do not try to influence the views or rephrase it or make our own interpretation, and we really try to integrate all the notes taken by the documenter, whether on a flip chart or in their own notebook. At the time of returning documents, please save the transcripts in a Word document or RTF format. and please also again secure all the findings in a very safe location to respect children's privacy and safety as well. So in terms of photographs and scans, some of the tools really need to be returned in a visual way, so we cannot use the tables. So this applies for the draw and write, poems and stories on childware. So either scan them or take a clear picture. And then if you decide to scan them, please send us a document as well with a description of the child's meaning of the drawing, because sometimes it can be that the drawing has been explained by the child himself, or that he included a small note next to it or on it in another language than English, French, or Spanish. So please include a small description of all those drawings next to it and attached. For the activity of a day in the life of timeline, please scan or take a clear picture of the results. And the same goes for the individual questionnaire and consent form. Scan or take pictures, and please return all the forms in a single file if possible. So at the time of returning, again, you will return those results by email. So the information is all clear in the documentation guidance on who to return it to and how. And this is just a summary of all the list of the documents that need to be attached: the observation documentation form, individual question and consent forms for each child, digital photographs of the activity, again for the draw and write, the timeline and day in the life of, and then of course of the activity themselves. Take photographs, please, and pictures, but please ensure there is an informed consent of each child. Then the fourth attachment are the transcription of the responses in the tables, the signed codes of conduct by each facilitator, and then again the photos and scans of the tools. So this is just a short summary of what are the key steps. So I know it's a lot of information to process, but we do it on purpose to just repeat to make sure that no data is lost, because the documentation is the most crucial part of the campaign right after the consultation activities. Is the only way we can get the data, and is the only way we can make sure that the voices of children are heard and taken into account, and of course respected. So it's really important to follow those guidelines. So this is a small timeline that you can always get back to it. It's also included in the documentation guidance, and it's just the key steps. So the key steps: at first we collect the individual question and consent form from part A to C, and then the individual contribution, which are the draw and write, and the codes of conduct. Then after the consultation, we complete the observation and documentation form, we transcribe the consultation results in the tables, and then we return all the files by email to the campaign organizer. And this is the email address, timetotalk.info@gmail, and you can of course get back to the documentation guidance for all and more precise guidance. So we thank you all for attending this tutorial, and we also encourage you to have a look at the others, which is the first one on the campaign and how we can get involved, the Children's Advisory Committees, and the Research Toolkit. And please also have a look at the website. We will incorporate many updates very regularly. And once again, thank you very much to all, and please, we encourage you once again to have a look at the documentation guidance. Thank you very much, and have a wonderful day.